When it comes to bird drawing, there are various species to draw inspiration from, and perhaps one of the most interesting is that of the owl family. Now, there are different types of owls to draw inspiration from and to use as a subject matter for a drawing, but in this particular video we will be looking at the barn owl. Now, the barn owl is a beautiful animal and provides us with such a great drawing challenge because of its unique aesthetic. We also find that this particular bird is such a great drawing to have in our drawing repertoire and easily integratable into various genres of art such as mysticism, fantasy, and has often been associated with such. Now, this is a really fun drawing exercise and there is a lot to learn and gain from this particular drawing. So with that being said, hey guys, my name is Matt. Welcome to another video by artincontext.org where we explore various art related topics, and in today's tutorial we will be looking at the barn owl and how to draw this interesting animal through a few simple steps. Now, with that being said, let's get into it. Now, we will be drawing the owl just with some simple materials, kind of working with some basic tools such as pencil, pens. We do want to make sure we have an eraser, but the idea is we can just work with a simple illustrative approach in terms of creating this very fascinating and unique creature. Now, the way in which we start is we're going to start by shaping the owl. Now, we want to start with a very simple pencil sketch of the owl. We can begin by drawing the owl in its fundamental shape. So we can draw a circle to establish the head and connect the head to its triangular shaped body, which is kind of these two fundamental main aspects of the owl. Now, we want to basically place all the main features together in a very simplistic shape, and this is basically going to help us to slowly form the overall size and shape of the owl. Now, at this point, we can also draw little shapes to establish the feet as well as some vague line work to place the beak, and we can also start to add these little circular shapes on both sides of the beak to establish the placement of the eyes. Again, the intention here is to keep your drawing basic, just so we have a general positioning of the actual features and kind of figuring out the positioning of how they fit together. Now, once we have established this very general vague formation of the owl, we want to then lightly erase the drawing, allowing for some very faint ghost lines to remain, and this is basically going to serve as a reference to kind of use in terms of establishing a more refined sketch of our owl. Now, once we have this general drawing kind of erased, we can now start to work with a more refined sketch. So starting with the head, proceed to draw in the beak and the eyes of the owl. We want to make sure that the eyes are symmetrical and flow into the beak. We can start to work with line work to establish a little bit more of a refined outline that defines the shape of the entire body of the owl to just give the owl a little bit more of a naturalistic look. A good suggestion once again is also just look at some reference images of the barn owl as you proceed with this part of the tutorial. Now, you want to keep the sketch quite light at this point with the aim of refining the details in the owl. The wings of the barn owl do rest on the side of the owl's body, and we also want to make sure that we are drawing in the segments within the various feathers of the owl. Now, the body of the owl is quite rectangular with the wings placed along the side of the body, and beneath this rectangular shape are the talons, which have 4 digits. Now, the talons are quite sharp as they are used for catching prey, and we also will find that the talons have these various segmentations within them, and we just want to take our time establishing those features. But yeah, we just want to make sure we spend time slowly refining the owl sketch by working with some line work to establish a little bit more of a realistic outline of various features, and we can use a set of lines to kind of define the feathery quality as well within the body and as well within the wings. Now, once we have this more generalized, refined sketch, we're going to move on to kind of enhancing these details, and now we can start with the head again, and this is where we really start to emphasize the actual shape and form of the various details from head to talons. Now, the barn owl's eyes are quite small in relation to the head of the owl, and we'll find that the beak is also quite small with a very small visible downward facing hook shape, so we want to make sure that we capture the circular shape in the eyes with sharpened edges that flow into the beak. We can also shade the entire eye as it is a unique feature of the barn owl. They become very black. However, we do want to maintain this very small negative space within the eye, and this is going to kind of represent this quality of a highlight within the eye, giving it a more glossy effect in terms of how light reflects off the surface of the eye. Now, we also want to make sure that we capture the unique heart looking shape around the face of the owl, and this is also a very unique feature of the barn owl, and it is what distinguishes the white feathery face from the surrounding feathers in the body that become slightly darker. Now, utilizing a combination of line work and shading, we can start to work through the entire body of the owl, slowly adding in some shading to add a little bit more three-dimensionality to the owl. So we want to consider how features kind of protrude such as the beak, which will naturally cause shadowing on the face. And this is kind of the idea in terms of how we create more three-dimensionality by utilizing our shading and kind of emphasizing any sort of feature that does have a indentation or protruding quality. Now again, just make sure you do take your time with enhancing these features. The body of the owl tends to be a little bit more simplistic in terms of detailing. However, the face is something you do want to make sure you spend time on. But at this point, we should have a decently refined owl drawing. However, to further the details, we're going to start integrating some line work and shading. And this is where we can start to work with both line work and shading to enhance the feathery textures as well as the features within the face. Now we can start to be more emphatic with our line work in the wings, where we add more distinct lines to define the segments and the stacking aesthetics in the wings. Now we'll find that the wings do have these layered qualities, and this is because it has a combination of short and long feathers. The short feathers are basically stacked on top, with longer ones kind of protruding or coming out from beneath those upper feathers, or those upper shorter feathers. Now we want to use some smooth shading in tandem with some line work to establish both tonal values and texture within the owl drawing. And the idea is to work in some shading and then emphasize those qualities by some line work by going over it, over those shading marks, which will then give these different tonal areas a little bit more texture and emphasizing the feathery qualities within our owl drawing. Now this is a process that will apply throughout the entire owl drawing, and we want to create these variations in tonal values throughout the entire drawing. We also want to consider how certain features will be slightly darker than others because of shadowing caused by other features, such as feathers stacked on top of one another or overlapping one another, and this is where we'll see some subtle shadow formations. But then we can also kind of apply this to any area of the body where we see protrusions or indentations or subtle grooves, especially within the face. Now another little detail we can add to our barn owl drawing is some spots or stippling details on the actual wings and body. Barn owls do have a very unique feathery coat, and the way in which we can represent this in our drawing is by the use of dots and stipples. Now with the talons, we can slightly darken them to basically distinguish them from the lighter tonal values within the actual body. But once we have done that, we just want to make sure we are working through the entire drawing, slowly refining all of these various features with some shading and line work. Again, with the face, we really want to pay attention to this idea of these very subtle protrusions that cause this indented quality within the face, giving it that very moon-like shape. And then as it protrudes towards the outer edges, we notice that the shadow formations become slightly lighter as they become more exposed to light. But near the eyes and the beak is where our shadow and line work should really be emphasized to create a very defined quality within these particular features. But otherwise, guys, to further contextualize the owl drawing, we can now draw in a branch that kind of places our owl in a space. And this just gives some context to the positioning of the owl as it is seated on a structure, not necessarily floating in a void. You can also make sure that you draw in the talons in terms of how it wraps around the branch, and this makes sense in relation to the position of the owl and how it is gripping the branch. Now this means only a few digits will be visible, naturally, because one of them will be gripping from behind the branch. And we can also work with both shading and line work once again to give the branch a little bit more of a realistic aesthetic, just kind of keeping consistency between our actual owl and the actual branch, making sure the one is as detailed as the other. But otherwise, take your time going through your owl drawing one last time, making sure you have worked in shading, line work and details to all the features of the owl drawing. Darken whatever areas need to be darkened, and be conscious of any sort of lighter tonal values that need to be present, maybe working with your eraser. But otherwise, guys, there you have it, how to draw an owl in a very few simple steps. This is a very simple approach to drawing an owl, very illustrative approach. However, a lot of these processes can be applied to other bird drawings in terms of forming them in its general shape or in their general shape, then kind of refining that form, working in some features, adding in some shading, and then ultimately enhancing your drawing with some refined details and line work. But otherwise, guys, some key things to think about is shape your owl first with some general shapes, work out the placement of the features, make sure you take your time with scale and structure, use both line work and shading to enhance the drawing, and then lastly, take your time on various features, making sure you attend to them and add details accordingly. But otherwise, guys, thanks again for tuning in. That is it from me today. If you did like this video and are interested in similar or related topics, maybe in bird drawing or animal drawing, please do let us know in the comment section below. We'd love to hear back from you guys. You can also show support by liking and subscribing. This helps us to grow the channel, which ultimately enables us to make more art related content for you guys, which we love to do. But otherwise, guys, thanks again for tuning in. That is it from me today. Until next time, cheers.